Hey, everybody, it's your girl, Coach Christal. Welcome again to another week of Wisdom Wednesday. If you are just joining us, we just like to tell you that you are welcome here in this community. Not only do we talk to people that I'm inspired by, we talk to people who I learn from, we talk to people who I hope inspire you, and tonight is going to be no different. But before I get ahead of myself, let me welcome you into our community with the Steps and Stages mantra that opens up each and every one of our assemblies, activities, whatever we're going to do. It just says that a lot of things happened before this, and I guarantee a lot of things are going to happen after this, but I promise to be here with you now. Please be here with me now. We're not asking you to stop your life, but we are asking you to be present for just a moment so that we can mesh the understanding and the action that equals wisdom, and that we can introduce you to some ideas that might just change the way that you see yourself and might change the way that you see others. Tonight, my guest is somebody from my hometown. You know, some people like to misspell my hometown. Some people like to throw G's in it, but I'm not from Kingston. I'm from Kinston. Okay. And so K-Town strong, and many people know Kinston because of the amazing athletes who have come out of there, but also there are artists, activists, there are people who are changing lives. And tonight I get to talk to Shemekka Ebony about how she's doing that, not just for herself and her own family, but how her vision of expansion has included many different communities and is actually changing the game. Please help me welcome Shemekka. How are you?
All is well. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate you so much.
It is my distinct pleasure. We already got some amazing clients in the chat. Hey, Loretta. Loretta's tuning in from California. Shemekka,
Yes.
yeah, in your own words, you know, like I can introduce you. I can say things that I've read. I've done some research. I've seen the I Am Brilliant movement popping up everywhere. But tell us in your own words, first of all, what made you start doing the work of community organizing? What made you want to lift the voices of those who may not be able to participate in the systems that are the people that we live with? So tell us a little bit about your drive, your ambition, and what really is at the root of your work.
I would have to honestly say the roots of Kinston have me illuminating in this work, understanding the power of community, word of mouth, communication, things that empowered the change, the low key movements that we had, even representative in Kinston, North Carolina. I began when I left for college, everyone, for our generation, it was like, leave,
Yeah,
go, get out of here.
yeah.
And in my journey to get out of there, I realized that Kinston is everywhere, and the investment I can put in communities all around the globe is an impartation of what's possible, not only for Kinston, but for all the Kinstons around us.
Yeah.
I Am Brilliant was the birthing of that affirmation while I was on the journey of what I labeled the hedges and highways. It's when God called me to really go into the hedges and highways and do missions here at home in the U.S. in my community, and be intentional of being the representation of God that other people might not see. And then what that looked like transformed not only the community but myself. In that illumination of feeling connected to what I was doing. And so that's what birthed I Am Brilliant when we started this campaign in 2016.
Yeah, I mean, you're already opening up so many things that many different communities battle, right? So yes, our generation was told, get your degree, get out of here, go make a life, and then the lives that we had, or the lives that we thought would carry on in the background, actually didn't happen. I mean, when we were growing up, Kinston was an all-American city. It's now one of the most dangerous places to live, right? The factory drain, the brain drain. You know, when we look at different communities where this is rampant, where there is a flight. Sometimes, I mean, in flight implies that people want to take off. A lot of times we weren't given a choice. It was like, get out of here, right? And so that kind of drive for better or for more in different communities, how do you see that continuing, that narrative continuing, or how we can reshape it?
So how this became activated in identifying, when I felt like I was called to be the voice of the voiceless, what experience taught me is that people weren't really as voiceless as we thought. We just hadn't given them a space to open up and illuminate.
Right.
And so with that, I began to see in community, if we really listen to the people with lived experience, expertise facing and surviving these inequities that organizations and institutions want to fix,
Mm-hmm.
We're not listening to them because they're surviving it. They're surviving it while it's broken. So they know some loopholes, some avenues, what could make it better. And so since 2015, I've been amplifying through the health equity arena and public health arena and creating that space so that community people, patients, community champions, people that experience expertise are not just invited to the table as a token anymore. The value has gone up on our lived experience expertise. And not only that, we've worked on ways so that we can be equitably paid and compensated for the life that we're transforming into, even sharing our stories when we partner with organizations and institutions.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And I just want to bring this to life for people, right? Because some people might be like, oh, well, how does this work? Or who does this work? And the real connection here, y'all, is that systems are built for us to navigate, but it's people who build the systems, right? And if there are only a certain type of people building the systems, then we're only going to get a certain type of result, and only a certain amount of people are going to be able to navigate those systems, right? And so, what Shemekka and her organizations are illuminating is that people have been navigating life, which is really just a collection of systems in various different ways. And let's see some different ways of doing that, right? Is that really the big picture?
Absolutely. And we believe that the sustainability is in listening to the people with
Yes.
survival already thriving in them. We just have to break down the barriers of the power dynamics and create those meaningful relationships. But those are opportunity for people to really get naked and transparent about who they are as human beings, and not holding titles and feeling like someone is more than or less than based on the color of their skin or the amount of money in their bank account.
Yeah, that's good because we actually, Shemekka, as a one of the kind of grounding principles of our organization, right? When we work with clients, is the first thing you do to really jumpstart your transformation is introduce yourself to a stranger. Because what you're trying to do there is either legitimize who you've been or allow yourself to test out who you're becoming.
Oh,
Right.
yeah.
And so in that conversation, they can't hold anything against you. They're only asking you for like what you're presenting. Right. And so I think when we get back to the reinvention of these systems, what you're doing is leveraging the voices of those who are like, I don't need the title. I just need for this to work.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And we also believe in the power of them creating a solution. So I've co-authored tools and white papers
Mhm.
that has been published in health equity and amplified and used in organizations. But it's more so about making sure that people with lived experience that are sharing are also compensated for the story that organizations keep telling long after.
Yeah.
Organizations are going to benefit from that story and get a lot of money in. We're just trying to level the playing field and pay equity, gender equity, racial equity,
Yeah.
but lived experience, expertise equity when it comes to
Right.
how our lives, our survival is being monetized in the industry.
Yeah, no, that's good. I mean, you should have every story should have its own royalties, right? Like
Right.
everybody's the authors get kickbacks from their book. Like people get every time we see a episode of a rerun, like somebody's getting paid for that, right? It's the royalties on the story. I'm a big believer in stories. We just published a devotional called Steps and Stories 30 Days of Growth with Grace. And when you think about your story dovetailing with this work, right, from origin to now, give us some of the highlight reel highs, lows, what would be on the trailer for the Shemekka Ebony I Am Brilliant TV show?
First generation college students, graduating college, getting married, starting a family, life interrupted, I would say level one place setting when my ex-husband was arrested for charges. I write about that and While I'm Getting Naked, and that journey of navigating a system that was already designed to be against him, but they actually additionally made an example of him because of his case. This was the first time offense for him. I feel like he didn't deserve the way he was being exampled, but he had to be made an example of, but for the
Mm,
glory of God, because he is doing great. He's wonderful. He's out of prison. He's a
amen.
business owner, serial entrepreneur. He wrote a
Love it.
book while he was in there. We were able to publish it. So we have those kind of highs and lows,
Yeah.
navigating housing security in the midst of, at that time, my husband being away, not too much to get public assistance, but not enough to survive. wife, my
Right.
child, so I'm forced into this single motherhood track that I didn't sign up for. And I reminded God about that a lot. Like this is not what I signed up for. Like I did everything I was supposed to do right?
Uh-huh.
Life interrupted, but that shifting put me on the journey of understanding what forgiveness is like and what raising children in community and really leaning on the village looks like,
Yeah.
not taking on that burden alone.
Yeah.
And then also, being naked and transparent in this journey through it that all, my own personal bouts with depression, physical ailments on my body that doctors couldn't find reasons for, but
Yeah.
it was all here in the
Mhm.
processing of some things that I had to go deeper. Those pains, the aches, the sadness, all of that was some physical manifestations of some other things that
Right.
I got to go on this journey and highs and lows and redeem from. And then while working in community, I met my now husband. Um, we our children met each other first, and then we began to have a business partnership, and then we've been on this long walk ever since, and it was found in community. Both we have passion for that, as well as social justice and entrepreneurship, and we've been able to bring our companies together and collaborate on community initiatives like I Am Brilliant to remind people of who they are, and when they turn on that light, sometimes we got to get some dust out of the way.
Right.
But in the midst of it all, we still have it within us, and we just got to remember who we are.
Yeah, yeah. I appreciate you sharing that, right? Like, I know what it's like to be a parent who's single on welfare, and you're right. It's like a messy middle, right?
Yeah,
It's like, oh, you're not quite bad enough to get help, but not quite good enough to sustain yourself. And we find that imbalance, I think, in every part of our transformation, and it's not just about the system that we're navigating, it's about the alignment of the system we have within, right? Like you're saying, the body keeps score. And so if we're continuing to remember who we've been, or reminding God who we were supposed to be right by now, right, in the time schedule, right, then we get messed up in the middle and we lose focus altogether. So thank you so much for sharing that. I know it's all been the curriculum that has led to your evolution. So
right.
right. Thinking about motherhood, right, you and I were chatting just a little bit before, right? You have boys, I have one son. The work you're doing is not only about other people, but is also about re-engineering how your sons are seen by the world. Talk a little bit about the work and how you see it changing that perspective.
Absolutely. I'm being pushed in a situation whereas I was looking like my life was going into a statistic with a husband incarcerated, raising two Black boys.
Yeah.
What the end of those stories tend to be made out to be. And
Right.
so at that, my husband was actually in law enforcement at that time when this happened.
Wow.
So I had to consider the dynamic of relationship of how my son saw law enforcement. I had to navigate the dynamic of how this system was treating my ex-husband, and that he still maintained his integrity and value and stance even as a father. Like I still took my children to see him when he was incarcerated. They thought it
Mhm.
was cool. They thought Uncle Obama was their uncle that they saw the president picture on the wall
Right, right,
every
right,
time.
right.
So what fast forward, we got them involved very early. My youngest, his first men's march against rape, sexual abuse, and gender violence was at 1.5. That was in Wilmington. So we normalized seeing them in service and them seeing themselves activated. So they were doing children's backpack programs. By 7, he was writing his own grants to launch that in the church that we lived in community. They
Mhm.
would help with the food pantry there. So service has been something that I wanted to normalize for them as a way of being,
Yeah.
because I couldn't protect what people would assume.
Right.
These cute little boys that you want to squeeze their cheeks.
Oh yeah.
I had to be mindful that in 10 years you could potentially see them as a threat. Same little
Exactly.
boy, same good demeanor. He had good manners then, and he has good manners then, but having to navigate that, I felt like it was very important that my sons knew their own way. They knew the system of the community, but then understood their role as a leader at a very young age to be that change. Don't be like the kids that they are around, but be that leader that is guiding them into their own light. So they've been
Mhm.
involved in our businesses. They've been involved in our community service. They've traveled. They've met Ambassador Andrew Young. They're MC Light, in reference to the 50th hip hop. So we
Oh
keep
yeah.
around this to expose them, so that they can create these pathways for themselves, and it's more normalized.
Yeah. I mean, the way that we were talking about our hometown before, right? Like there was, y'all, let me just, okay, if you don't know, let me just, let's back this up for you. We grew up in a little town where if somebody caught you doing something crazy, they could whoop you.
Yes.
They could whoop you and walk you to your mama and say, I just whooped him. And your mama would say, thank you. And then your
Yeah.
mama would whoop you. And
Yes.
that'd be like maybe Wednesday in the middle of the week. So by the time you got to your grandma's house on Sunday and she heard about it, she might whoop you again. And by that time, like you're so like, I just you I won't do nothing again. I'll
We
just sit
made
over.
better
Right.
choices.
Like I just, is it okay for me to breathe? Right. And so I know that a lot of people like wince at that type of parenting or that type of community because the way that we are raised, the way that we were raised, Shemekka and I were about community was about communion.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't about knowing who lives there. It's about knowing how they live. So if their quality of life dwindles, we can fill in the gap. Right? It wasn't about cooperative living of like, we know they're fine, they're good neighbors, they look good on the outside. And some people might think of it as just like a southern trait, like we nosy, but some of the nosiness is necessary. Right?
Yeah.
Right. During the pandemic, I think it became even more of a survival mechanism because people isolated rather than insulated themselves with good people.
Mm-hmm.
And that just led to so many, mental health issues, thoughts of suicide, loneliness, isolation. And we got to remember that the reason that we're human is because we walk this thing together. Right. And it's
Yeah.
so important to remember that, so.
It's something so powerful about belonging. We don't give it enough scientific credit,
Mm.
but it's the essence. We like to feel like a sense and comfort in prioritizing belonging.
Yeah, yeah, it's true. Right. And so the reason you just sparked my memory about there's a book called The Culture Code, and he talks
Mm-hmm.
about the science of belief and belonging. Right. And so many times we want to belong so much that we stop believing in our own power, right? Like sometimes we transfer, we give it away. But
Yes.
again, it's that like middle. We got to find the balance between allowing ourselves to be fully who we are in the presence of others, to be seen, because that's again like what we're really all wanting. The stories that you're illuminating, these people really just need to be heard so that change can actually happen, right? Being seen for what they're doing so that the system can catch up.
Yeah, and one of the things that was so important to me, I remember being quoted in a news article. It was titled that I was a superhero, and I'm like, let me pump the brakes on that. If I'm a superhero, then I'm all about finding the other 10,000 because I refuse to be an anomaly. Like,
Yes.
no, I'm going to destroy whatever pedestal that someone might try to create for me because the truth is, you're called to do this too.
Yeah,
You just need to figure out what is your part that you hold. And
exactly.
that search has illuminated incredible community champions across the globe,
Yeah.
and amplifying them, finding their place and turning their light on so other people can see how to connect like they did in their human essence, doing what they love to do.
Yeah. Listen, you just said exactly what we do. I mean, we work with clients every day, and the first question we ask them is, what would you love? And they say everything they don't want. And then
Right.
they say everything that they might think is possible, things that they could strategize for. And I said, no, no, no. Right. That's not what I'm asking. Right. And so, like, and probably more than most people who are watching this podcast, Shemekka, that, from the little town that we came from and the life that I've had, it wasn't supposed to come out of there like that. Right.
No, not at all.
It was not so like, and so every day I'm just kind of in awe that a little black girl who's 5'3", weighs 160 pounds, became a professional dancer with a big butt and can't do a split. Right. That's
And yes, absolutely.
right.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yes, and it paved a way. Even as a youth, you've been a visionary and creating a pathway to show other young people what's possible to pursue a dream. Like, yes, you were the only black dancer I knew.
Right. 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 And half the time I was up there with some tights on that weren't my color and some lipstick that was way too bright for my face, but we were still just getting through it. Right. That's what you have to do. Shout out to Nora Lee Parker for putting it on. But as we move into this next stage, I know that there's some really integral work that you do that takes a long time, right? This is not a quick trip. These are not things you do like the work that we do with clients on the inner self. You're doing in community, and that work doesn't happen overnight, right?
Right.
So I do know you just had a big win, right? Let's share the win. So let's do that one first. What just happened?
Yeah, so well, let me lift up first. Locally here for North Carolina, North Carolina just launched today. They had a ceremony. Actually, they're doing the lighting of the Freedom Park Tower right now, and we have here in Raleigh, North Carolina. Definitely come visit. This Freedom Park was 20 years in the making, and with leaders like Senator Natalie Murdoch, we were able to amplify community voices in a way that you're going to see quotes on the wall, even from the late George Floyd. There's a quote from him to just really pull in that energy. And being there today, it was really good to be in community. It brought into the power and the need of us to amplify things. We just we're coming on a year in November, producing the Community Bill of Rights, which community leaders from all across the country came together last year, and we were sick and tired of being mistreated by organizations, institutions. So we all had, no matter what our race was, what our socioeconomic status, our commonality is that we wanted just in the community, and we wanted lived experience expertise to be valued when we come to the table. And regardless of our differences, we had a shared language of solution and really wanted to get something done. Remember, I told you that champions have that secret sauce of getting stuff done?
Yeah.
In 6 months, we were able to produce the Community Bill of Rights as a way of being, so that organizations and institutions can understand how to work with patients, how to work with people when they want to engage community, not only for research, but small businesses, corporations, those that are experiencing gentrification, municipalities. We wanted to help them, those that are intending to do well, to give them a tool that could help amplify ways that they could center community to prioritize those that have the jewels and how they build relationship with them.
Yeah, I love it. And if y'all want to learn more about it, there's a link in the chat, Community Champion Club. Shemekka, there's a question in the chat. It says, Shemekka, what are your challenges with creating community in an area of the country that is notorious for not being on a oneness? Right. And so go ahead.
I want to ask for clarity. Are we saying that this area of the country is in North Carolina, or?
I think North Carolina, the South, I think maybe, yeah.
Okay, well, what I celebrate first is that people can bring their whole selves into community. So we're not there to kind of create a oneness more than we're seeing what this soup is going to look like. And we co-design those solutions with community, because everybody's idea isn't to be on one accord unless there's a shared goal for that one accord. If we co-designing can identify what that one accord is, that's the priority. But for me, I learned very early on in this community engagement journey that you cannot destroy silos. People are going to maintain their silos. And so what I do, especially in ecosystem building, is come down, come far and wide. Let's meet together in the middle. Let's build, let's grow. And then you go back to your kingdom and you amplify this message however it makes it meaningful for your community. So it's not a priority of the oneness, but the oneness is that we are convening with the intention to share a message into our siloed spaces, our kingdoms, our villages, however we show up and own our connection to other people.
Yeah. I mean, because we are, by human nature, we're territorial.
Yeah.
Right. And people have a hard time letting go. We've been taught for so long that you work hard for your part and you take care of it, you manage it well. Right. So giving up that sense of responsibility is often, in community engagement, in the methodology that I use, is enter, exchange, exist. Right. So that exchange in the middle is like, that hurt. Can you say that a different way? I don't know. I hear you, but dang, did you have to say it like that? All the things that kind of go against the grain in people's I would say the culture of these separate communities, right? But culture at its root really means care. So in that exchange, when we're finding out how to care for each other in different ways, we're also increasing our own capacity to be human together.
Yes, absolutely. I think that's very powerful to connect it back. Our human connectedness, like
Mhm.
if we can recenter with that,
Yeah.
and build within that, because we can all find things that we are more similar than against one another. And
Yeah.
so that territorial nature is something I don't think we're going to change. It's just that is part of DNA structure. After being in
Mhm.
Sierra Leone in December, I understood that so much more.
Yeah.
I came back with a renewed perspective and understanding of how I see things in community, but also how I saw so many representations of American citizens over there in those people, the hustle,
Mhm.
entrepreneurship, the drive, the joy,
Yeah.
like the kryptonite, the secret sauce was in their joy,
Mhm. Mhm.
celebration. And I'm just like, let's get back to that.
Right. 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 I mean, it's undisputable, right? And a lot of times, or in the beginning of this platform, there are many people in the industry of self development, and especially women who come from non traditional backgrounds, like myself, in this industry. And some of the ways that they get seen is to lead with their pain, right?
Yeah.
And that's just, I mean, because the world loves it, right? And
Yeah.
so the publicity of pain runs rampant, and people connect to pain without understanding that what they really want is the evolution of that person's pain into the joy, right?
Yeah.
So we've made it a clear, conscious, you know, thorough intentionality to lead everything of this platform with joy, right? Like, you would be hard pressed to see me start out anything with what I've been through. Like, right? And because
Right. And it doesn't discredit the journey.
it doesn't.
But what I've come to understand is I call it the leading while bleeding. My pastor preached on this with that title of, sometimes we're leading from a broken place. And if we're still bleeding, some of the pain of the hemorrhaging will come out in the message, and then it's filtered, and then it's misunderstood.
Yeah.
And now you got somebody on a pathway from your broken place because you guided them while bleeding without doing that self-care and getting your own treatment.
Right, right, right. And so you, like, we bring this up all the time too, right? Self care and soul care, right? Some people are using self care just as a reaction or a response to not getting what they've been asking for, or not taking care of themselves, right? So we think about soul care as a wellness journey. Like, if you think about a well that's dug deep in the ground every day, if you're depositing a little bit of joy into the well, then your soul can be cared for when you need to be replenished, right? Like, we
Yeah.
just we misconstrue some of the ways that we kind of direct our focus into the lack rather than building the abundance. Yeah.
That's so good. Thank you for lifting that.
No, I think it's also a part of what you and your husband are doing in terms of even your transitional living during the pandemic and going out into space and reclaiming land. Like, what does that mean for you in your individual story as it pertains to the work you do in community?
It was so important. So we were in a townhouse with four children that were going to four different remote learning schools,
Wow.
um, a small toddler and a newborn in a townhouse that was only 3 bedrooms.
God
So
bless you. God
what,
bless you. One of the
what
things, but you're leaving out a very crucial point. You're leaving out a very crucial point. All of these are boys.
Yeah, well, boys and two girls. So
Oh,
we had
okay, okay.
four
Phew,
boys and
okay,
two girls. That was
okay.
we had them all together
Mhm.
at that time, and I was the privilege of people that could find that corner, that quiet space that the public education was like, make sure they have a quiet space to focus and concentrate. So we had kids under the kitchen table. We had kids under the stairs, under our desk in the midst. We survived.
Had to make it
And
work.
on a budget, focusing on budgeting for that many children. That was when we were featured in the New York Times
Yeah.
Money edition to about how we were handling our Biden books, and we were the only African American family identified out of 7 that were chosen across the country, and we were the largest. But I have to say, hands down, we represented Black families well in shifting this narrative that we don't know how to manage money, because
Amen.
I read the comments. I had to go check and see how we were measuring up,
Mm-hmm.
but it felt good to see this as a way of being for other families to see what's possible. Team, no
Yeah.
excuses. Like we were self-employed business owners, managing 6 children, and pushing forward to keep
Hmm.
going. So it
Right.
is. We wanted to show everyone that it can be done, not just because we're special, but because we all have this in us. If we just shift that lack and poverty mindset to an abundance mindset,
Yeah.
knowing that we all have a piece of the bigger puzzle of solutions. And
Yeah.
once you identify what that is about you, then we can all work together to be better.
Exactly, exactly. And it goes back to this work being a journey. Like you don't flip a switch and all of a sudden go from lack to abundance, right? Like I
No.
love my coach, right? He also talks about, the 6 millimeters between your ears, right? That's the 6 centimeters, right? But if you shift a millimeter at a time, that's the journey, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's just about a mindset, shout out to Derek Mindset Beckton, also from the K. But a mindset
Yeah.
is not something that stays, right? It's not like you don't keep your thermostat at 70, 75 during the summer.
Yeah, my husband, I love him. He talks about this. We reboot our phones every set couple of days or months. We are forced to reboot and download something new, but we ignore our bodies, our mindsets, our thoughts, our religion, our
Yep,
journey. We do not give ourselves an opportunity to reboot. And I
we don't.
love
We
that
don't.
him lifting that because it is the missing part. And so
Yeah.
we believe that I Am Brilliant is that reboot to help people that need it to illuminate because there's people waiting on us and we gotta go. No excuses. We got it. Let's
I
go.
mean, that's the thing, right? I think big picture, Shemekka, the courage to put your stroke on the canvas, right? There's a big canvas of life out here, and some people are holding their paintbrush back, or they haven't even dipped it in. They're still worried about what color should I use, right? We're still back here, kind of thinking about the minutia rather than taking the stroke, right? And this God, this grand overall designer is waiting on the big picture to come out of the canvas, and people are holding their brushes. We're just holding back, right? Like it's time to really put your stroke on the canvas. Yeah, yeah, I love that.
Absolutely. If we give ourselves that power to believe in ourselves as much as we'll big up the person around us, we'll celebrate, we'll push someone else to do something we won't do. Like my personal commitment is I'll never ask any of my clients to do something that I have not committed myself to do or in the
Yep,
process of doing.
yep.
So sometimes we'll hide behind our excuses and we'll ask God to enlarge our territory. And that's why I talk about with the pathway to abundance is the same mindset to getting to wealth. If we don't start acting like we're wealthy and operating as with a mindset of wealth and abundance within ourselves, when we get it, we're gonna act poverty stricken and squander what we have. So it's like if we're gonna ask God to enlarge our territory, what are we doing in the wait time? What are we
Exactly.
doing in between time?
Yeah, yeah. The other part that okay, that brought up two things, right? We think about weight training, like you have to be trained on how to wait gracefully,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
So it's that part is about weight, not like building your muscle weight training, but like weight training. And it's been psychologically proven that people who win the lottery within 3 years of their winnings go right back to the same level of life they were living before
Right.
because they never trained to be wealthy. And so
Mhm.
their comfort zone with money is even sometimes poverty. So they'll spend it all or blow it all until they get back to
Right.
their comfort zone.
Right. Or they're not monitoring it, right? They're not stewarding this resource or this gift
Exactly.
that's been upon them. So everybody gets it. Why? Because you're putting out fires, which many of us, and I'd have to say that holding accountability when you are the center or support or you're holding
Yeah.
even family members up, even friends up, if you don't keep a good, I think Steve Harvey said it one time, you're going to lose yours trying to help those who are around you because they're going
Right.
to suck away everything. It's like build up the foundation for yourself and show how it's done because that's the best gift you can give those that are watching you to see how they can do it for themselves.
Exactly. Exactly. That you couldn't have said it any better. Listen, okay, we're almost out of time, but let me ask you the question of the season, Shemekka. So each season of our podcast, we have a question that we ask our guest. And this question comes from a Don DeLillo quote that says that the family is the cradle of the world's misinformation. And basically what we're saying is, what did you have to unlearn, maybe from your family of origin, right, in order to become this leader, this community builder that you are now?
Oof. I had to unlearn the practices of minimizing my gift,
Mm,
not accepting celebrations, shunning away someone shining a light on what I was doing. I think it was out of habit and practice of, so in Kinston, where I'm from, I was down the hill. So
yes.
that was considered the poor. That was, the privilege was up the hill. I was down the hill.
Okay, and let me just interject here, right? Because I grew up the hill, and it was the working poor, basically. Like, we just need to put a good name on middle class. Okay, just want to say that.
Right.
Yeah, right.
Right. It's, I guess, equivalent to people's railroad track stories.
Hmm.
And so, coming with that awareness and understanding, I had to unlearn poverty in a way. Now, I have to also say, I love and credit my mother so much because I didn't realize I was poor until I got to college.
Amen.
So, the college system, financial aid told me I was poor. So, shout out to Evelyn Cannon for that, because that kept me protected. She
Yeah.
made miracles. I didn't know where she got it from. There were some things I couldn't do, but there was so much around me in community. I had a library. I had the public library in my neighborhood. So that's where I spent a lot of my childhood.
Yep.
And shout out to that community development of being those librarians there, Miss Solomon, you know,
Fierce.
yes. Big influencer on just the style and grace, being able to lead and corral.
Yeah.
Those were the things, having that understanding, needing to unlearn the lack, came as I got older. But it was that misinformation of keeping things in the house, not talking about it, not connecting with family, not letting people know that you're in need. I understood I needed to break those barriers as an adult. And understand now, eagle's eye view, looking back into my childhood, I saw how powerful community was. But in some instances, growing through it, you don't understand it until you get to the other side.
Exactly. I can resonate with each and every one of those unlearnings. I love it. Right. And this idea that, in many of it, just all ties back into the work you do, right? Because in many of these situations in small communities, there's a way that people say things. And if you're not well versed in the vernacular, you might miss what they're calling the solution, right? As your community building, right? So yes, we need to unlearn what happened in the house, let it stay in the house. But we
Right.
also might need to relearn some of the ways that people would just do things on Sunday, like just drive and go see people.
Right.
Right. Well,
I
we just
remember
don't.
getting fruit from Mr. Harold would bring the overflow from his job and just sit it on his back porch, and people in the community would come and get what they wanted.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So that abundance that we can share things that are beyond money, right? That
Yeah.
don't have to be traditional currency. And most of all, sharing ourselves is the most valuable thing we have.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Shemekka, look, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. We have
Yeah.
dropped the link in the chat about the Freedom Park and about Community Champions. We'll also include some links to Shemekka's books underneath this viewing, and make sure that you remember that you are brilliant, that you are a
Absolutely.
visionary, and if you're ready to take the next step, continue to walk the path that you know is yours. Develop the vision, write the vision, make it plain, and take the next step. Thank you so much for watching, y'all. We'll see you soon.